My daughter walked into the lawyer's office, set a folder on the table, and slid it toward me without a word. Then she smiled the way she used to smile when she was about to ask for money. "Mom, sweetheart, we just need a few signatures." That was the moment I knew something was very wrong. Because 3 weeks earlier, I had already taken that same folder out of her car. My name is Margaret. I am 68, widowed 9 years, a retired English teacher in Charleston, and I have one daughter named Vanessa who learned the word sweetheart from a woman who used to spit it like a knife. There were 4 things in that folder my daughter did not know I had photocopied. There was 1 phone call she did not know I had recorded. And there was 1 sentence she would say out loud, in front of 2 witnesses, that ended everything. I am going to tell you what she did. I am going to tell you what I did back. And I am going to tell you the exact words she used the morning she thought she had already won. Stay with me. The folder is not even the worst part. A Tuesday morning in March, before any of this turned ugly, Vanessa called me from her car. She always called from her car. She did not want her husband Mark to hear. "Mom, sweetheart, can I swing by tonight? I want to talk about your finances. Just to help." I said, "Of course, honey." I had been saying of course for 41 years. That night she came in with a yellow legal pad. She set it on my kitchen table the way a person sets down a weapon they have not used yet. She wrote 3 columns: house, savings, pension. Then she drew a line under my name and wrote her name underneath. She said it lower than her normal voice. "Mom, sweetheart, what if something happened to you tomorrow? Who would handle all this?" I said, "You would, Vanessa. You are my only child." She smiled. "Then so we should make it official." I said, "Of course, honey." That was the first thing I noticed. She lowered her voice every time she said something that would later cost me. "Sweetheart," lowered. "Just to help," lowered. "Make it official," lowered. If you have ever sat at your own kitchen table and felt the temperature drop by 1 degree, you already know. The second thing I noticed was the man in her passenger seat that night. I saw him through the window when she left. He was wearing a suit. He did not get out. He did not wave. She drove him away. I did not sleep well that night. I started sleeping with my purse next to the bed. I could not have told you why. 2 weeks later, Vanessa invited me to brunch at a place she had never taken me to before. She ordered for me. She ordered the cheapest thing. She said, "Mom, sweetheart, Mark and I have been talking. We think it is time we helped you simplify." I said, "Simplify what?" She said, "Everything." The man from the passenger seat walked up to our table. He introduced himself as a family advisor. He had a thin folder under his arm. He sat down without asking. He said, "Mrs. Calloway, your daughter loves you very much." I said, "I am aware." He said, "We just want to protect what you have built." I said, "From what?" Nobody answered for a long moment. Vanessa reached across the table and put her hand over mine. Her hand was cold. She said the thing I will hear in my head for years. "Mom, sweetheart, you are starting to forget things. We are worried." I said, "What have I forgotten?" She said, "You forgot Mark's birthday. You forgot to pay the cable bill last month. You called me Vanessa Marie twice last week, and you have not called me that since I was 9. I had not forgotten Mark's birthday. I had sent a card. I had a receipt. I had paid the cable bill on the 14th. I had a confirmation email. And I had called her Vanessa Marie exactly once last week because she had lied to me about where she was on a Sunday afternoon, and Vanessa Marie was the name I used when she was in trouble at 9. I did not say any of that. I said, "I see." The advisor slid the folder across the table. Just a few signatures, a simple power of attorney, so Vanessa can help with the small things. I said, "Can I take it home and read it?" He looked at Vanessa. Vanessa looked at him. She said, "Sweetheart, of course." I took the folder. I put it in my purse. I went home. I read every page 3 times. Then I called a friend I had not called in 11 years. You probably already know the kind of woman I mean. The friend you stopped calling because life got busy and she got divorced and you felt awkward. Her name was Eleanor. She had been a paralegal at the courthouse for 32 years. She picked up on the second ring. She said, "Margaret, I have been waiting for this call for a long time." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Your daughter's husband, Mark, works for my ex-husband's firm. I have been hearing things." "Bring the folder." I drove to Eleanor's house the next morning. She read the folder for 9 minutes without speaking. Then she set it down. She said, "Margaret, this is not a simple power of attorney. This is a general, durable power of attorney with springing provisions. If you sign this, and any doctor she picks signs one form, she owns your house, your pension, and your savings the day after." I said, "The day after what?" She said, "The day after a doctor says you are no longer of sound mind." The kitchen went quiet. I said, "Who would say that?" Eleanor said, "Anyone she pays." I drove home with the folder on the passenger seat. I parked in my own driveway. I sat there for a long time. Before I tell you what I did next, if you have ever sat in your own driveway and realized your child has been planning something against you for longer than you have been planning Christmas, you already know this feeling. Stay with me. I am almost there. Here is what I did. I made photocopies of every page in the folder. I put the originals back exactly the way she had stacked them. I drove to her house while she was at her Pilates class. I let myself in with the spare key she had given me for emergencies, and I put the original folder back in the glove box of her car where I had quietly taken it from 3 days earlier. She had never noticed it was gone. She had not even opened her own glove box that week. Then I went home and waited. She called me the next Tuesday. "Sweetheart, have you had a chance to look at the paperwork?" I said, I have some questions. Can we meet at your lawyer's office? I would feel better signing in a real place." She said, "Of course, Mom." Of course. The way she said "of course" was the way I used to say "of course" to her, lower than her normal voice. In the days before that meeting, 3 things happened that I will count for you. 1. Vanessa called my cousin Doreen and asked her if she had noticed Mom was slipping. 2. Vanessa called my pharmacist and tried to ask whether I was still picking up my own prescriptions, and the pharmacist, who had known me for 26 years, called me an hour later and told me everything. 3. Vanessa came over for Sunday dinner and rearranged the canisters on my counter, sugar where the flour used to be, coffee where the tea used to be. Then she watched me make coffee. I made it without looking. She frowned. She said, "Mom, sweetheart, you did not even notice I moved things." I said, "I noticed." She said, "No, you did not." I said, "The flour is in the sugar canister, the coffee is in the tea canister, and the tea is in the cabinet above the stove where you put it last Sunday at 6:23 in the evening." She said nothing. That was the night I realized she did not just want my house. She wanted me to doubt myself in front of witnesses. She wanted my own hands to shake when I poured my own coffee. She wanted me to look at my own kitchen and not know it. The kitchen went quiet for the second time that month. I called Eleanor that night. I told her about the canisters. I told her about the cousin. I told her about the pharmacist. Eleanor said, "Margaret, you need a clean medical evaluation. Today. Not from anyone she has ever met. I know a doctor at the medical university. Full neuropsychological workup. 2 physicians. You go in Monday. I went in Monday. I sat in that office for 6 hours. I did math. I did memory tests. I drew clocks. I named animals. I repeated sentences. The doctor walked in at the end of the day with a report in her hands. She said, "Mrs. Calloway, you are in the 98th percentile for women your age in memory, 99th in executive function. I would let you teach my children." I said, "Can I have that in writing, signed by both of you, on letterhead?" She said, "I will have it ready Wednesday." I picked it up Wednesday. I made 4 copies. I put one in my purse. I put one in my safe. I gave one to Eleanor. I kept one in a kitchen drawer under the dish towels. Vanessa called me Thursday. "Sweetheart, the meeting at the lawyer's office is Friday at 10. Mark will be there. The advisor will be there. We just want to make this simple." I said, "Of course, honey." I did not sleep Thursday night. I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the canisters she had moved. I had not moved them back. I wanted her to see them exactly the way she left them. I wanted her to walk into my house one more time before Friday and feel certain. She did walk in Thursday evening on the pretense of dropping off a casserole. She glanced at the counter. She smiled the way she used to smile when she was about to ask for money. Then she left. There were 4 things in my purse Friday morning. The signed Mayo-level report from the medical university. A printed transcript of a phone call I had recorded between Vanessa and Mark on speaker 3 Saturdays earlier, when she did not know I was on the line because I had quietly picked up the kitchen extension after she hung up on me. A photograph of my counter on the Sunday she moved the canisters, time-stamped, taken with my own phone before I went to bed. And a letter, handwritten, from my pharmacist, describing the call Vanessa had made trying to get information about my prescriptions. I drove to the lawyer's office. I parked. I sat in the car for a long moment. Then I walked in. Vanessa was already there. Mark was already there. The advisor was already there. There was also a lawyer I had never met. He stood up when I walked in. He had a folder in his hand. The same folder. The original one. From her glove box. He said, "Mrs. Calloway, please have a seat." I sat. Vanessa slid the folder across the table toward me. "Mom, sweetheart, we just need a few signatures." I did not touch the folder. I said, "Before I sign anything, I would like to read something out loud. Is that all right?" The advisor said, "Of course." I opened my purse. I took out the report from the medical university. I read 3 sentences from the summary page. The patient demonstrates intact memory function. The patient demonstrates intact executive function. The patient is fully capable of managing her own legal and financial affairs. Nobody spoke for what felt like a full minute. Mark looked at Vanessa. Vanessa did not look at anyone. Her hand stopped halfway to her coffee cup. I reached into my purse again. I took out the transcript of the phone call. I slid it across the table the way she had slid the folder. I did not say a word. The lawyer picked it up. He read 4 lines. His face changed. Vanessa said, "Sweetheart, that is not what it sounds like." I said, "What does it sound like?" She said, "It sounds out of context." I said, "Then let us read the context." I reached into my purse a 3rd time. I took out the photograph of the canisters and the letter from the pharmacist. I laid them side by side on the table. The pharmacist's letter sat there. The photograph sat there. The transcript sat there. The medical report sat there. 4 things, counted out, one by one. I looked at my daughter. I said, "Vanessa, you told my cousin I was slipping. You called my pharmacist. You moved the canisters in my own kitchen so you could watch me reach for the wrong one. You sat in my kitchen and looked me in the eye and told me I was forgetting things I had not forgotten. You brought a man to brunch and called him a family advisor when he is actually employed by the firm trying to acquire my house through a quiet sale to a developer your husband Mark works for. I know about the developer. I know about the offer. I know about the percentage Mark would have received." Mark stood up. He sat back down. He did not stand up again. Vanessa's purse was on the floor beside her. She bent down to pick it up. She picked it up too slowly. The clasp opened and closed in her hand. Open, closed. Open, closed. She said, "Sweetheart, I was only trying to help." I said, "You used the word sweetheart on me 93 times in the last 60 days. I counted them. Every single time you said it, you were about to lie to me." The room was quiet for a long moment. The lawyer cleared his throat. He looked at me. He said, "Mrs. Calloway, do you wish to proceed with any signatures today?" I said no. He said, "Do you wish to file anything?" I said yes. "I would like to file a written withdrawal of consent for all communication between this firm and my daughter regarding my affairs. I would like a copy of every document in that folder, and I would like the name of the developer in writing." He gave me all 3. Vanessa stood up. She picked up her purse. The clasp opened and closed one more time. She walked out without looking at me. Mark followed her. The advisor stayed seated for a moment, then quietly left through a different door. The lawyer sat across from me. He said, "Mrs. Calloway, may I ask you something off the record?" I said, "Of course." He said, "How long have you known?" I said, Since the night she moved the canisters. He nodded slowly. That was 3 months ago. I did not press charges. Eleanor told me I could. The lawyer told me I could. The pharmacist told me I should. I did not. I am her mother. I will be her mother the day I die. But Vanessa has not been in my house since that Friday. Mark lost his position at the firm 2 weeks later for reasons I did not arrange and do not regret. The developer's offer on my street quietly disappeared. My cousin Doreen called me crying and apologized for listening to her. I forgave Doreen. I have not forgiven Vanessa. I do not know if I will. Last Sunday, I made coffee in my own kitchen. I reached for the canister without looking. My hand went to the right one. I poured. I sat down at the table. I drank it slowly. The canisters are still in the wrong places. I have not moved them back. I do not need to. On the windowsill above my sink, there is a small ceramic mug Vanessa made me in 3rd grade. It says Mom on it in crooked letters. I have kept it for 52 years. I looked at it that morning for a long time. Then I turned it around so the word Mom faced the window instead of the room. I am not ready to throw it away. I am not ready to look at it either. So it sits there, facing the glass, and the sun comes through the letters from the wrong side, and from where I sit at my own kitchen table, it just looks like a small white shape I used to know.